Hi, welcome to Being Micah, and thanks for joining me for today's video, part 2 of To Read or Not to Read, that is the question. Last week we agreed, or I agreed, that the answer to that was a resounding yes. So with that thought in mind, here's part 2 of the summary of some of the books that I've been reading over the last year to maybe give you some ideas if you're thinking of reading a book. And let me know what you think, and do come right back after this for some final words as well. And I'm going to go on to the next book that I was recommended by one of the studios I went to, and it's Sanford Meisner on acting. It's a great book. I do really like it, and obviously Sanford Meisner, he's one of the great sort of almost legendary acting teachers. Almost was in the group theatre company, and then they kind of all broke away with their own ideas, but he was one of the ones on that. And this book, if you could say Meisner, it's a great book, and the way this is written, the style is you're following Meisner, you're following Sandy, as his students call him, and he's teaching a class of acting students, a group of acting students, and they do different scenes, different exercises, and it's all the feedback, the creative questions he asks them, and you kind of learn from that. It's different from the other books where there's no tools, there's no techniques in that sense. It's more you're learning through him and observing him, sort of bringing out the best in his students and getting them to be more real in those circumstances and in the scenes that they're doing. The main thing of what Meisner's technique is the repetition exercise. And the repetition exercise is kind of going into, you have blue hair, you have blue hair, you have blue hair, you have blue hair. And it's just a case of doing it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the reason he says that in his own words for this exercise is to just get all the intellectual stuff out of it and get out of your head and just concentrate on the other person. And he builds on the repetition exercise by adding an independent activity that's hard, that keeps you concentrating on that, and then you do the back and forth repetition exercise. Then he also adds preparation to it as well, where you enter the repetition exercise with a preparation, with an emotional state to get you started in that, which will then change as the scene goes along. So as the scene goes along, that initial emotional preparation that you come with does kind of change and go, and that's where you're like more in the moment and going with it. But that's what his repetition exercise is about, and I want to read what he says on what his reason was about that. That's on page 36, and in his own words, he says, I decided I wanted an exercise for actors where there is no intellectuality. I wanted to eliminate all the head work, to take away all the mental manipulation to get to where the impulses come from. So he wanted to go to that mechanical almost way, which will then lead to an impulse, would lead to that spontaneity of acting and of doing something. Sorry, not act, that's a terrible word to use. But anyway, he also says later on, which is great as well, is he's obviously all concerned with acting truthfully under imaginary circumstances, and he talks about that. He talks about focusing on the other person. Again, these are all things that he's kind of saying and you're learning as he's talking and workshopping the other students as well. And he's got exercises, tips, the creative questions that he asks are all about getting you to be more truthful under the imaginary circumstances of the scene. There are some points that I must admit I did find kind of difficult to understand, or I just couldn't follow it. I don't know if that's just me, or hey, you can maybe like leave a comment and explain to me, maybe I didn't understand the book, I don't know. But there were certain points that I didn't quite follow, but I think that might just be me. Before I go into the book that I'm reading right now, I want to just give some general reference book that I have. Two books that I have are quite older now. The Theatre Audition Book, and this one was An Actor's Guide to Auditions and Interviews. And these are two general books on auditions, and they're great books on how to just generally prepare for auditions, how to go about auditions, audition etiquette. It also talks about how to choose audition material. It talks about, this one especially is great because it's got monologues, especially if you're auditioning for drama schools. It's got different monologues, it's got period monologues, classical monologues, it's got Shakespeare in there as well. It's also got contemporary monologues as well, mainly theatre based of course, and it's great for drama school auditions. I used it when I was auditioning for drama schools, and I was able to get several monologues from here and obviously read the play, the full one. But it's great for that sense as well, and it's honestly like one of the best theatre audition books that I found, just because it's so compact, from choosing the monologue, going into it and actually doing the character work on it, and also just choosing, it's got loads of interesting monologues, definitely worth the check. And the other book, all about auditions, again, it's the general kind of thing where it's auditions, what to expect, how to go about it, audition etiquette. And the great thing about this book specifically is it talks about auditioning for all the different types of things that you do. It talks about the difference in auditioning for drama schools, the difference if you're auditioning for film, for TV, for independent films, if you're auditioning for musical theatre, if you're auditioning for commercials. It's got different specific ones of what to expect and how to prepare and how to go about it. So it's a good reference book, but I just wanted to quickly bring that up as well. And another book that I really like is called Actions, the Actor's Thesaurus. And acting is actions, it's based on doing. Acting is doing, it's not being, you're doing. And Actions helps you clarify and get really specific in what you want as a character, rather than have general ones, which I've heard is the worst enemy of an actor, where you have generalizations. What do you want is kind of a general vagueness, because if you're vague about it, if you're general about it, it's going to come off that way. And the whole point of this is to, when you action the text, when you add actions of how you're going to get what you want, what you're going to do, you know, I tempt you, I seduce you, you know, I lure you, I argue with you. I think that might be a bad one, I don't know. But anyway, it's got actions, and it's a great point of reference to clarify and really put clearly what you're trying to do and trying to kind of get your acting, or I don't like using the word acting because the next book I'm going to talk about is specifically about stop acting. So just generally it's a great book, the Actions one, because again it tells you the actions that you can use, and if you're stuck on something, if you want to breathe new life into a scene, into a sentence, not sentence, but into a script or something, it's great for that. Do check it out, and I kind of keep that with me quite a lot, because sometimes when I'm not confused, but when I need more idea, inspiration, or I'm kind of stuck on like, I don't know what I'm doing over here, I use that to just browse through and like get myself a clearer action to get clearer intention. The last book is what I'm starting to read now very recently, by Harold Guskin, How to Stop Acting, which is why I kind of wanted to not use the word acting in any of the previous ones, because that's the whole point, how to stop acting. And this has got it's got stuff written at the back by Peter Fonda, Glenn Close, Christopher Reeve, also James Gandolfini, who used to be in Sopranos, which I haven't actually watched Sopranos, which I know I haven't lived. I've heard it before for many other things, and at some point I'm kind of hoping I'll get around to watching Sopranos. I've heard really good things. But he's also written on the back as well of the book, and he worked really closely, really closely. Apparently in a couple of seasons for The Sopranos, he worked very closely with Harold Guskin just to get his scenes or his character choices right. And the great thing, like, I find about that is an actor as good as he was still kind of needs or wanted to have that, and it's that kind of continual learning. And even somebody like that having the humility, like, hey, you know, I'm not saying I know everything, even I need to clarify my choices and always be better and striving to be better and perform better. So I don't know much about this book right now, just because I bought it recently. I'm still in the process of reading it. But again, this is similar to the ones I talked about, like the whole Meisner type approach, where it's away from the techniques, I feel. And if I just read it from the back, it says, Guskin offers a strategy based on a radically simple and refreshing idea that the actor's work is not to create a character, but rather to be continually, personally responsive to the text wherever his impulses take him. And I'm really excited to read this as well, because not that I find the other ones are too much work in terms of the whole mind of the text and character biographies. I just kind of find this one helps you get more into the scene, more into the character first. But before I actually end this video now, I actually want to go back to the book that I read earlier on, and it's just all about the different techniques. The reason is, even when I'm presenting this video right now, I'm reading all these books, and I've read all these books, and I was generally saying the difference I find in back home, where it's very Stanislavski based, is very much based on character profile and history and biography and all the detective work on the text in terms of analysing it. This tells you, I actually want to make a video about those two different things as well, because there are two different types of styles and different things and different methods almost. And I want to make a video more specifically about that as well. But I do want to leave you with a couple of thoughts that this book and the other one says as well, which is generally how to go about it. There's not no right or wrong answer. It's not you can't use a technique or you should use a technique or which one do you use. It's just a great thing. On page 124, I want to read it from the book because she says it really well. She says, technique is there to help you, not hinder you. Don't forget, ultimately, acting should be fun and spontaneous, not a stressful intellectual process. Some characters might come easier than others, and that's okay. Acting really doesn't have to be a struggle. You should be aiming to try and use all aspects of acting technique for a role character that you play. Think of having a big acting toolbox at home, and every time you have to approach a role you take, the specific tools that you need to make that part your own. You must understand that some characters will come easier to you and more accessible than others. Great, lucky you. Others might be further away and harder to access, and that's exactly when you should open your box and take out the exact tools you need to help you find the character. And Bella Merlin says it really well as well in her book, and I was going to quickly read that as well, where it's not a right or wrong thing. You kind of use what you want to use that you find easier for it. And as she says at the end, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whether you use a Swiss Army knife or a Leatherman, as long as you get the job done effectively, creatively, and above all, inspirationally. So generally, these books have different types of techniques that you can use, but as they say as well, it's not using one technique over another. It's more just when you're approaching character, you might use magic, if you might use personalization, you might just use something else based on what you feel and how you want to develop that character. So I hope along with last week's video and this week's video you found it interesting, useful and helpful in maybe giving you a couple of suggestions if you're thinking of reading some acting books as well. Do let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and some of the poems that you liked, or if you're thinking of reading a book or which one you're thinking of. And you can also find a detailed link of each of the books that I've talked about under the video below, so you can get more details on it. So thanks for joining me for another video, and join me next week for another video. And remember to follow me on Instagram, like me on Facebook, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel to be up to date with all the new videos I'm coming out with. And I'll see you next week. I'm being Micah, and you be you.